it's really easy, particularly in our current age where we're all online and we all, we take in a lot of things. There's a tendency to sort of think, oh, well, I'll just take in more stuff and that will tell me the thing. But what arts education does is it allows you to practice being yourself in a way that we don't do in any other situation.
This is Arts Educators Save the World, where successful artists and their mentors talk about how arts education transformed their lives. Hey, Alec. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Arts Educators Save the World, a podcast where successful artists and their mentors talk about the impact of arts education on their lives and on yours. Today is Comedy Day. Today we get to talk to comedian Chelsea Devantez and her mentor, Libera, who she calls the mom of comedy. So today's going to be a lot of making funny, talking about making funny, talking about how making funny makes you a better human being, and how funny can make you better at all the things that you want to do in your life.
And I feel like we have now transitioned a little from your sphere of interest to my sphere of interest. Last season, we definitely had our musical theater run where I sat there and nodded along to everything. And now we're moving into comedy writer world, which I've dabbled in. And I know these folks. We started with our friend Rachel, and now we have Chelsea. And we have more coming up as the season goes on. And I am fascinated by the education of comedy writers, this strange skill. It's not strange to say, yes, I definitely can hit a home run. I could definitely dunk a basketball. I could definitely work on a spreadsheet. But to say, I'm definitely funny is a strange thing to declare. But these folks have declared it and then have been through the mentorship to help them craft that innate skill into a successful artistic career.
And for anyone who's followed the careers of some of the finest Saturday Night Live comedians, this particular brand of comedy and comedy education that's centered in Chicago, centered at the Second City and all of its related organizations, Anne is very much an educator and a comedian of the Second City School, as is Chelsea. So we get a little bit of a window not just into how to teach people funny, but how this brand of how to teach people funny has spread across the country. Welcome, everyone. Today, I am thrilled to introduce someone new to me, but likely not new to a lot of our listeners. Emmy-nominated writer and comedian Chelsea Devantez, head writer for The Problem with Jon Stewart, writer on shows that you all know and love, Not Dead Yet, Girls 5 Eva, Bless This Mess, and The Opposition on Comedy Central. She's a 2014 alum from Second City, where, based on my very lame Googling, she appeared on tour, on a cruise ship, which is something I would love to hear more about if there's time, as well as locally at Second City, Chicago. She also wrote, starred, and directed in her debut short film, Basic, which was released in 2020, won a whole bunch of awards, and as my friend, writer Rachel Axler, who is also appearing on the podcast this season, said when she and I were talking about other writers that we could have on the podcast, you are not going to find a more interesting, more dynamic force than Chelsea Devantez. So welcome to the podcast, Chelsea. Thanks for taking time in your schedule to be with us today.
Wow. Thank you for that intro. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Erica. I have amazing news for you, which is that my short film is 3 minutes long. It's a true short film. I feel like short films are viewed as like, oh God, how short is it? And they'll be like, it's 40 minutes. And it's like, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. That's 2 episodes of television. So just 3 minutes. I am really thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for that intro. When you messaged me, I knew it was so easy to know who I had to bring on because her full real name is Comedy Mom, but she also goes by Libera. But I've been calling her my comedy mom very lovingly for a very long time because she has a big bio. She's been a director and writer in so many things. She's authored books, but how I came to know her is that when I was a sophomore in college, I realized that comedy was where I was supposed to be this whole time. But I had a unique upbringing. I didn't have a TV for much of my life. So I was really missing what I felt was just like years of education. And I just knew I needed some hardcore comedy education. I very thankfully found a little advertisement for a program called Comedy Studies that Libera started with Columbia College in Second City, which was a program to teach you comedy and give you college credit. You would go and do a full semester program. I was in the third semester ever of the program, and I got college credit for it. It was my study abroad. Anne teaches that program. She has now transformed it into so many other things, and she's directed shows at Second City, and she's also quite literally saved my life, but also emotionally and magically saved my life. So welcome, Anne Libera.
Chelsea, would you say, Anne, you have a coming out?
Yeah. And you have a book coming out, which I feel like you should tell everyone about.
Yes. Well, this is my second book, both of which were published by Northwestern University Press. The first one was called The Second City Almanac of Improvisation, which is a compendium of short articles by improvisers and teachers of improvisation. And this one, though, is really all me, and it's really based on the work I've done as a comedy teacher and educator. And it's called Funnier, a theory of comedy with practical applications.
Because Anne always says, like, I can't make you funny, but I can make you funnier.
Yes. Well, no. If you get one question as a comedy teacher, particularly as a comedy professor, is, aren't people just naturally funny? Can you make someone funny? And I said, no, I can't. In the same way that you could not get me to do a pull-up if you paid me. But I can make you funnier.
Is there such a thing as pull-up-ier?
I think so. Yes.
This is amazing. I feel like, Anne, offline, we have so much to talk about. There is a chapter in my book on improv as the foundation for good teaching. Mm-hmm. It's almost like the twin core of the teaching of comedy and its practical applications. And I actually use the way that Tina Fey talks about the 4 rules of improv for your life in her memoir as the foundation for talking about the 4 big ideas in improv as a foundation for teaching. We have a lot we could talk about.
We do. Improvisation and the practical applications of improvisation, both in teaching and other places. I have sort of 2 big passions. And Chelsea, of course, is an improviser, an amazing improviser, both on her podcast, but also as a performer.
Thank you, Anne. I'm glad we got that in for the listeners. I'm very good.
I also like that Eric has something really interesting to talk with Anne about, but doesn't want to do it on the podcast.
Well,
we could get really nerdy really fast.
Very
Let's be
quickly.
Very clear.
What I would love to do, actually, is have the 2 of you reflect on the first time that you recall working together. It doesn't have to be the same story. It's quite delightful when it's not the same story. So I would love it if you all would start right there.
Well, and we can sort of build off of this together, because the very first time we met was Chelsea had applied for comedy studies and was going to start the semester, but she also got an internship at Second City to do while she was doing the semester. And she worked on a show, a pilot that we filmed that was written through improvisation called Homeschooled, and she was a production intern on that. And it was filmed in my house.
Yeah. Basically, the program Anne ran was Monday through Thursday comedy classes. Everything from like sitting and Anne is going to show you comedy classics. And then another class would be like, you're going to get up and improvise. Another class would be like, you're going to learn how to write. Fridays were free. And I was like, well, let's stack it up, baby. So I applied to Second City and I was like, can I have an internship on Fridays? And I got that. And then the internship started early. And my first day there, I was just like, what can I do? And they're like, oh, nothing. We're just so busy. We have the shoot this weekend. And I was like, can I be there? And they said, yeah, we don't have any money for you. And I was like, do you think I care? Like, yeah, no, I'll be there for free. And they were kind of like, oh my God, you're just, okay. Yeah. So I just showed up and just kind of like helped out and was like a general PA. But then I was in Anne's house. I was hanging out with Anne's children. And then I was also like, oh my God, that's my teacher. That's my teacher who I really want to impress.
And my daughter, Nora, the premise of the show was that the children were improvising as part of it. There was a British show that we based it on. Nora was in it. And she decided that Chelsea was her own personal PA.
Yeah. So I brought the actress on set, bacon and donuts.
Yes.
And I was like,
small child actor.
Tell your mom I'm smart and cool, and that I should be one of her favorite students. Yeah. And then classes started, and I actually wasn't sure if Anne was going to put it together that I was the girl in her house. And she was like, oh, hello. And I was like, hi.
And that first semester was really a very intense experience because, again, comedy studies is this, we call it comedy cross-training.
Yeah.
Chelsea was performing and writing and improvising and spending time in comedy history. And one of the really amazing things to see for me, and one of the things I love about the program itself, is that doing that kind of intensive work over time, there's this moment a little over halfway through the semester that the students just sort of like blossom out. And you just see this moment where they realize, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember the first time it was like, week 1, and they were like, okay, so you're on a late night show, as a group, come up with your 10 opening jokes for the late night show. And it can be like the Daily Show or it can be like Letterman, but yeah, go write them. And I just remember feeling like, what are you talking about? Because like I said, I didn't come from a background of this at all. And so the actual tools and building blocks of like how you make a joke were not things I wouldn't even know how to talk about joke structure at all. I remember going from that to at the very end being like, here's your 10 jokes. Like what Anne said, it's like, oh, it was like finally getting the tools to like set you free. I have this thing in me that I have to get out, but I don't know how to get it out. And by the end of the semester, you're like, I know all the ways you can like make art now.
Yeah. And that you can make it over and over and over again. And it's not, it is hard, but you can't be precious about it, right?
Right. Because I said 10 jokes over a semester. At a late night show, it's like, 100 a day, please.
Yes. That was such an important piece of what we did together. And what you did was make over and over and over and over and over again, right? And that's the thing that really stands out in terms of the work that you do now, too.
Is that you go again and again and again and again. Yeah, that's true though. Like if I didn't have that skill set, I would not be here at all. Like the ability to go again, which is also, as you know, Erica, because you wrote about it, that's the core of improv. Go again, go again, go again. And I do think in a career that can just be totally brutalizing, the ability to go again over and over again and you're not destroyed by it is probably like one of the core foundations for either success or being somewhat mentally sane by the end of your time in Hollywood.
I like to ask a question, and I'm so happy that I get to ask this of Chelsea, because there's something that I quote all the time to people about being funny, and it's from Jon Stewart. When someone asked him, back when he was on the show, someone asked him, you do these intense political interviews. Is it hard to be funny while you're doing it? He's like, no, I'm funny. What's hard is the politics. And it's a strange thing, right? Because accountants aren't ashamed to say they're good at spreadsheets. You have to be good at spreadsheets if you're going to be an accountant.
Yeah.
I'm also a sign language interpreter, and there's a workshop that I'm putting together to teach about how do you interpret funny. If the deaf person is being funny, if you're not funny, you're not going to be able to interpret for them funny. You could say the words, the concept that they're saying, but being funny is a whole different zhuzh. There's so much more to it.
Yeah. Especially with signing and the physicality, which is such a part of comedy and making the joke land.
Chelsea, what kind of funny were you growing up? Were you funny in school? Were you funny in your house?
Yeah. What kind of funny was I? The deeply traumatized kind. Carrie Fisher has a quote that's like, if my life weren't funny, it would just be true. And that is unacceptable. And I definitely feel that. So yeah, I will say there's a side of me that is like extremely serious. It's the side of me that like reads and studies. And that's not the type of funny, like, there's many ways to be funny. There's also a type of funny where someone is just like breezing through the day, and they're quipping. I'm not like that. There's a part of me that's just always like journaling in a corner, and then coming out to be funny. I grew up all across the Southwest, but sometimes in like very, very tiny towns. And I was in high school in the early aughts. And during that time period, when you were a woman and you were funny, the technical term for it was weird. So I was very weird. And I think it was also, I just got a lot of responses of like, why though? Like, just be like a lady with hair and a nice smile. Like, why this? Why must you?
Why must you have something to say?
Yeah. Why are you doing this? Like, just be normal. And I think the first like real distinct moment was I was a freshman in a brand new school, and somehow some girl on student count, I have no idea how it happened, but just some girl who was cool and rich was like, we want you to perform at the school assembly. Honestly, it was probably a setup and it worked, but they were like, we want you to perform at the school assembly. There was this cool sketch on SNL where they were cheerleaders and they were like, Tostito, burrito, what's coming out of your Speedo? And it's like Will Ferrell and Sherry O'Terry. But
Terry, right?
Yeah, we didn't have TV. So I've never seen it. I don't know who the actors are. I know the idea of SNL. So this girl told me what the sketch was. And then I rewrote it with lyrics to match our school and went out and performed the cheerleader role with her. And we annihilated. We crushed. Years later, I would finally see that sketch. And I was like, oh. But in that moment when we were crushing, I remember having the feeling in front of the assembly of like, oh yeah, whatever this is, like, I'm in it.
Well, it's such an interesting thing, right? Because when you're making comedy, there's that one part of it that is just about recognition of like, oh, you get me. I made something that you understand. And it's that combined with the sort of pain.
Yeah. Well,
right?
And also, God, laughs feel incredible.
Yes.
You know, they always say like the best comedic actors make the best dramatic actors. But for me, I'm like, brutal. Because then you don't get you just get silence. You just get a deep nod, you know, where with comedy, it's like that feeling those laughs hit you and the timing and the laugh. It just is like such a endorphin to chase.
Well, because it also feels though like they've read your mind.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like to them too.
Yeah.
Like there's this whole group of people who are all having the same thought at the same time, and you put it there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And you don't get that in drama, people may make noises.
Yeah.
It's not the same though, right?
It is not the same. You're totally right. And I think also the very half serious side of me, half funny side is it makes sense that Jon Stewart said that. And also that I went and worked for him, and also that I came from Libera, which is that half serious side of like, I really have something to say. I want to say this thing that you're all feeling and thinking. I want it to change you and affect you, which is a different type of comedy than I just want you to laugh. When it's done poorly, it's the clapter, you know? It's like, ha, yes, good thought.
We all agree.
We all agree and are smart.
Look at us.
So it's like, that's the bad version. But the good version, and the version that obviously Jon does so incredibly well, and why he can just sit there and say, yeah, I'm funny, and we all just go, yes, you are, is you're laughing and you're actually like slightly moving culture. That is something that I always wanted to do, and something that Anne specifically taught me. I love knowing the definition of satire, because then every time someone likes Trump or some just douchebag wants to be like, I'm joking, you're like, you're actually, clinically, you're not. You're actually not doing any of the components of being satirical in any way.
Well, that's I'm kidding unless you're going to actually do it.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
I'm kidding.
Unless this is a thing.
You are going to take your top off.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because part of satire is saying that I'm shining a light on something that needs to be seen.
Yes.
And I'm using humor, I'm using recognition, I'm using pain, I'm using distance to do that. But the thing I'm saying is, look at this thing that needs to be changed.
That needs to be changed, because sometimes people think they're doing satire, but what they're really just shining a light on is something we all know about, or we've all seen,
yes,
or is the actual thing in power.
Right.
And you're like, that's actually not it.
Yeah.
Technically, you have to talk about something else.
Technically, you have to like make a case.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it is through comedy, it's through showing how dumb this is, how strange it is, how wrong it is. But you're still saying, look, we should pay attention to this.
Yeah.
And that's what satire really does.
I'm going to super nerd out for 1 second. And then I want to ask you, Anne, about how you think about teaching that in an instructional space. But what I was thinking about when y'all were talking, so I also teach qualitative research methods to graduate students.
No big deal.
Well, most people are like, oh, I'm already asleep. So I appreciate the great, that sounds vaguely interesting.
No, qualitative research is hard.
It's hard. And also because I come from an arts background and not a social science background, I have learned that I basically teach it like an arts class. And one of the things that we talk a lot about is there's a very famous narrative theorist, Jerome Bruner, who talks about the concept of verisimilitude as the way in which people make sense of hard narrative ideas. So it's the, oh yeah feeling that you get when you read something that resonates with you. And when I teach it in qualitative research methods, it's a way to move beyond the sort of idea that we know we've gotten research right when we have a high level of validity in our questions that we ask on our survey because the response rate is significantly the same over time, right? Or we know that the instrument is reliable, but that verisimilitude for me is actually the way that we know that we've made good research, because our audience can consume it and go like, oh yeah, I see. And not only, oh yeah, I see, but the thing that you said, Chelsea, about also moving a particular conversation forward. So good research shouldn't just tell us something we already know. It should point us down a slightly different road around a question or an issue or a topic that we care about. I love that this conversation about good comedy is also, for me, is a conversation about what makes good research.
That's really cool. It reminds me of the Gina Davis Institute, where she just grabbed all the data of how many women and people of color appear on screen and if they ever speak. And she said, she was like, she took it to a bunch of animators at first, and she just goes and presents the data. One of the animators said, like, oh my gosh, like you hear like, oh, we want more women and more people who aren't, just whites. And he was like, you hear that? And we put all these people in, but it wasn't until I saw it laid out in front of me that I realized how wrong, how many animated characters we made male or white leaning or all these things. And that she goes back every year and they're like, but we got a little better.
So what I want to ask related to that is, Anne, how do you structure your learning environments to teach for the development of, well, we can call it the development of verisimilitude if we want to sound fancy about it, or just the development of this kind of comedy that Chelsea's talking about? How do you design your learning spaces to teach for that?
So one of the things that's absolutely true, and Chelsea will completely agree, is that the people who are interested in comedy, and we sort of mentioned this earlier about coming from trauma, one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of the students who are interested in comedy were not good at traditional school. Sometimes that's because they have some kind of trauma in their background. Although I make a big point of saying you don't have to have trauma in order to be a comedian, and you should not inflict it upon yourself in order to be a comedian.
Seems a little backward, perhaps.
Indeed. There's a belief system around that, right? That you have to be crying on the inside in order to make good comedy. But the two big things that I look at, one is helping students mind their own work, mind their lives, mind what they care about, and then think about what they want to share with an audience. Because there's two parts to it, is what's funny about you, what's funny about what you know, what's the part of you that connects to other people, and oftentimes the part of you that connects to other people isn't the part that you thought was going to be funny. I think that's one of the biggest things, is discovering, oh, there are other people like me for whom this is what they find funny. And there's other people like me for whom these things are true. This is sort of my comedy theory, is this idea that comedy is recognition, pain, and then a kind of psychological distance that allows us to laugh at it together rather than just feel it. And so that the first thing you do is mind yourself, and mind yourself not just for the things you think people will find funny, but you mind yourself for the things that are really true and recognizable for you. And those are going to be the things that you have something to say about, as well as something to make a joke about.
If you are trying to explain, how do you make people laugh? Let's say you can already do that, but how do you make them laugh maybe 100 times a day over and over again for work on Monday, Tuesday through Friday, and you don't want to be funny? I found it so interesting to not have your first question be like, okay, so Chelsea, what's funny? But the first question Anne is asking, what's true? And that is such a different way to start the mining process to get to a joke. And I think it's especially the way you start if you are working in political comedy. You want what is true, and starting there actually like taking you to the best joke than starting at what is funny.
Yeah. And sometimes the things that are true are the most obvious things. Like, okay, we'll talk about Trump because he's ubiquitous. Although I think as comedians, we're like, oh, again. But part of what's so crazy about him is that he just lies. Mm-hmm. He knows he's lying. We know he's lying. And that truth is one that's actually not very often talked about.
Yeah, like they're like, he's a Cheeto, he's orange, right. He's a cheese stick. And you're like, you guys, right. We got it.
Can we just start with like the base thing, which is that nothing this man says is true? And also that we know other people like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Unfortunately. Yeah. I've worked for a bunch of them.
Yeah. But so you can say Trump isn't just this character. He's like that guy that you worked for in your first job who gaslit you, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying specifically.
No, you are actually. Keep going.
I know. But to be able to say, and I think this is one of the big things, is to recognize as a comedian that what you have to say is valuable, your experience is valuable, what you see is valuable, and then dig into why and how do I share that with a bunch of other people, and that's what's going to make them laugh.
Yeah, which you just kind of started almost teaching mapping, which again, like that's just something yes. where like I could have like known in my head or my heart what mapping was, but I couldn't have said it right. or articulated it until Anne was like, here's how you would map a scene about Trump over your boss at the coffee shop who is a dick and gaslights you. And like knowing how to play that and heighten the beat and twist the beat and then have an out for it. Those were all the things where it's like, how would I have found my way there if someone wasn't standing there teaching it? I mean, I would have found my way there, like falling on my face over and over again, which I also did. But God, having Anne there was so great.
One of the things that's also true about comedy, though, is it's math. It's too bad because everyone thinks it's magic.
But it's math.
It's really math.
Yeah. And the people who you're like, I guess technically they're funny, but they're really annoying to me. Those people will be like, it's all math. And I learned the math. And you're like, okay, no. It is 10% magic though, sir.
Yes. Yes. It's not all magic. You don't just walk up on stage and be you and it's amazing. There's the math, but also, yes, no, it's not just math because it's about people. Yeah. And people aren't math.
Yeah. And do you work with people who from the get-go are not out to be comedians in any way, but realize being funny is a superpower or knowing a little bit how to craft the joke in any way is going to benefit me in my next job interview when I'm ordering Starbucks, anything that I'm doing, if I'm a little funny, that's going to give me 10%. Do you have people who just are curious about this comedy thing?
Well, yeah. So actually I taught not in my comedy program, but about a year ago, I taught a class at Northwestern's entrepreneurship program. And it was about how you pitch and not just pitching with a deck, but pitching to tell a story and pitching to convince someone to work with you. But I got to sneak my comedy stuff in. So we used improvisational exercises to sort of work through storytelling. But what was really mind-blowing to the class, because I think everybody's afraid of comedy, or certainly in the business world. And so being able to say that the things that you can share in your pitch is about something that is true for you, something that the group knows about, has a little bit of vulnerability in it. And again, sort of coming to that comedy math of, oh, they don't know enough about this. You need to give them a little bit more to recognize it. You need to set up a pattern so that there's a little bit of a game to it. These are all sort of comedy tools. You need to exaggerate something. You need to find a character that feels recognizable and then make that character more expansive. And you need to give them flaws because nobody likes a character that doesn't have any flaws. Yeah.
Or probably the big one is be more specific.
Yes, exactly.
And that's like my favorite exercise that I passed on from Anne, which is like, be more specific. And then you come up with a reference and you're like, now be more specific. And you come up with a reference and you're now more specific. And then usually on the 7th one, you're like, you found a joke.
Yes. And oftentimes what's weird about this is that the most specific thing is also the most recognizable thing to everybody in this class. It blew them away that they could be funny through that specificity rather than through making fun of something and being derogatory.
Chelsea, I don't know if this is possible, but I've been thinking about whether 19 or 20-year-old Chelsea who walks into Anne's class, whether you remember what a mapping or a specificity exercise was that you did then, if you have a memory of that and if that has stuck with you, and if you can talk us through something that you did in Anne's class that really shaped the way you think about writing and writing comedy.
Yeah. The great thing about the class is that, you know, it was taught in the building of Second City, which I so deeply wanted to work for. And when we talk about cruise ships, I have a very special Anne tie-in. So the way that Second City casts and Second City does their material is that the cast on the main stage create and write the material and perform it. Those all get videotaped, or, you know, that was what it was back then. And then those tapes would get passed on to the touring company to help you recreate what has already been proven on the home stage, and then you take it on the road, you take it on cruise ships. And then that same material was in Anne's DVD player in the classroom. So the mapping scene I most remember is, it's a scene, you're gonna have to help me with the names, even though I should remember these, Anne, but it was an office scene at Second City. It was mapped over a dysfunctional, broken home, which I loved.
Oh, I know exactly. It's Belt.
Yes, it's Belt. And the boss is acting like the drunken stepdad. And the manager is acting like the mom. And then the people in the office are acting like the coworkers.
The children,
The children, yeah. But they're using like office jokes and office language, but mapping the broken home. And so I would say that's like some of the best ways to learn, because you could describe it, but, you know, up on its feet. And when you see it and then you rewatch it and you rewatch it. Because once you make the joke of like, haha, it's a broken home, we get it. It's like, okay, well, then what? Now everyone got it. And so teaching those beats of like how to heighten. I remember Anne teaching that quite literally by pointing at the screen and then stopping, and we would discuss.
Well, and understanding too, because it's also about transformation. It's not just one joke. It's a joke that heightens until it becomes something else. And in that particular scene, it goes from just an abusive boss to that sort of game where an abusive parent will try to bribe the kids. So starts to play mind games. And again, it's that clarity of the structure takes us through it. And when you look at the structure, you sort of have to take that audience on that journey. But it's also, oh, in this place, this is where it has to transform. Something new is going to happen.
Yeah.
The other one I love, and I don't remember what you did for this. So I teach the history of comedy class, but I also have them do it. So we talk about vaudeville, and then everybody writes and performs their own vaudeville act. Do you remember what your vaudeville act was?
I'm excited.
Wow. No, I have no idea. I remember some of my assignments from there, but I don't remember my vaudeville act. God, I hope I did something with tassels.
No, you.
Do you remember?
I do. My friend.
Oh my God, what did I do?
No, you did a sort of semi-burlesque.
I knew it.
I saw you. Yes, but you did like almost like a
Mae West?
Elaine Stritchy.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Like doing a sort of pseudo Mae West, Elaine Stritch thing.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
Yes. But part of what we're also doing with that is we're thinking about the other piece of we talk about in comedy is a popular medium, right? Which means it's about money. And so you're both working towards a higher thing, but you're also thinking about what the market is. And so thinking of that in vaudeville, that audience there was a huge house. The acts were in competition with each other. So your job was to do something that was going to get their attention and hold it. Mm-hmm. For me, that as one of those lessons too, it's like, because you come out and you're doing this thing, and I think you had a boa.
How could
in
I
my
not?
head you did. How could you?
I
not?
definitely did. I have a boa in my house now, so I'm sure I did then.
But creating that sort of larger than life character version of yourself that was willing to sort of be over the top and do this other thing.
The other thing I remember too is teaching like where the America was socially in terms of where comedy was at, and vaudeville was like, depression, like everything sucks. And so a guy's going to come out with like 12 cups on his head and, he's going to do a little dance. It really mapped out actually the type of comedy exactly that took off in Trump era and pandemic era, which is that how do you keep someone's attention? And we are sad. We're very sad. So please do big, jokey, attention-grabbing comedy where you really saw all the late-night news shows that were flourishing. Took a deep, deep hit when you just got too sad to do more informational, satirical comedy.
Right.
And I thought of your course and I said, look at us doing vaudeville on TikTok. We're lip syncing till our lips fall off for clicks.
Well, it is though, right? TikTok is vaudeville.
It really is.
It is.
This is the next book. Title.
TikTok is vaudeville by Anne Libera.
Yes. Book number 3. Not that anyone asked, but I would say my favorite version of that mostly involves what I would refer to as animal pieces, which is like a completely normal scene, except everyone's wearing some sort of weird chicken head.
Absolutely.
So it's maybe not the sexy version. There's no tassels involved, but there's always some sort of tail, probably ears, maybe paws.
Yeah.
Well, and again, that kind of like weirdness, the feeling of being outside of yourself, which is what's great about that.
Chelsea, did you know you wanted to do comedy, or did you know you wanted to be a writer and then comedy looked like a particular form of education and challenge that would make you a better writer?
I knew as a kid that entertainment, like whatever that was, like entertainment. And like I said, like very few resources. And also we've come so far in such a recent modern amount of time that I think we forget about. But like when I was a teenager, the options for being a woman in the arts were Sandra Bullock or Julia Roberts. That's it. That's your options. And so in that moment, I was like, oh, you just have to be like a famous, quirky actress, and I'm brunette, so I guess we're going Sandra Bullock. And it wasn't until I saw my first improv show when I moved to New York City, that was when I was like, oh, it's always been, it always has been comedy. It will always be comedy. We didn't have improv in New Mexico like that in that year. And so it was all comedy. And then that's what brought me to Anne. And I did not discover that I was actually a writer for quite a while, because I was just performing what I wrote. And then suddenly you get to this place where you're like, oh my God, I've been a writer. I think I mentioned I was dramatically journaling all my life. So it's like, we could have known this earlier, but I didn't until I really got the tools to unlock how to write. And all of a sudden I realized like, oh, I'm mostly a writer. But I went into it performing first.
Going back to that, it's that audience, right? It's that knowing that you're connecting with your audience. That's like the core of what you do.
Yeah, totally. It's hard to write, as you guys know. Like, it's hard. Everything in the arts is hard, but you can fake acting. You cannot fake writing. You can fake directing even. You can totally be a hack director. But writing, it's just really hard to fake. People still try, but it's harder to fake it. I don't know what I'm going with that. I don't know. It's hard and I do it. No, I don't know what I was trying to say.
Do you find, Anne, that most of your students go in that direction? They come in as performers or wanting to be performers, and then the folks that persist discover that they're writers?
Well, one of the unique things about comedians, and you look at the careers of successful comedians, is that they write from their own persona and they write into the world. And most of them are writer, director, performers who work across mediums. If you think about Jon Stewart is an example of that. Stephen Colbert is an example of that. Tina Fey is an example of that. Chelsea is an example of that.
Ashley Nicole Black.
Ashley Nicole Black is an amazing example of that. Robin Thede, Jordan Peele is maybe a really great example of someone who took his comedy and turned it into something that still has the germs of his comedy, even though it's horror. One of the things I think is amazing about comedians is that they're, for the most part, not just one thing. That if you're really going to be the comedian, you are sharing of yourself. And that means that you are, by necessity, oftentimes are writing collaboratively, but writing for your voice. And voice is part of what we really recognize in comedy. Chelsea's just finished her book. There's a reason we love those memoirs written by particularly right now, a lot of amazing female comedians.
Yeah.
Phoebe Robinson, Negin Farsad. I mean, but part of the thing is that it's their voice, that we get to be with their voice. And that's something that I think comes out of performing as well as writing, and then moves into that writing.
All right, Chelsea, talk about your book. I want to hear about the writing of a memoir and that as an art form and how you moved into that space.
Yeah, that's such a good question. Thank you. Also, I feel like I have to tell this cruise ship story too.
Tell the cruise ship story.
Should I tell that one first?
Oh, yes.
Let me tell the cruise ship story.
Cruise ship, then book.
Because I think the cruise ship story is very on theme for this podcast, which is that, you know, it used to be one of the first paying jobs you could get at Second City was being on the touring company. And then you could get to the stages. But then they got a contract with a cruise line. And then there became this little pre-gig that maybe you could get on the ladder of gigs working your way up at Second City. And that was going out on a cruise ship, which I always say is the most amazing thing I would never do again. But some people did it like for years. Like they would be on that boat for years. You know, cycle the same 5 island stops and you would perform these comedy shows from Second City. And so we wanted this gig so badly. I remember, I think I did 2, Second City would hold yearly auditions where like 1,000 people would come in and it would just be like general auditions, but probably for the cruise ships. And I did 2 of those to like crickets, to just no callback, not even a nod. Did I even get a laugh? Who's to say? At the same time, they would do auditions for these things called house co's, which were sort of like the training center version of like a touring company. Like, is that the right way to say it?
It was a Second City produced, but a student training show.
Yeah, but it was like another little level. And the auditions for both of those things were the same. It was the same type of audition that was held. One day, me and Ashley were crying about our failures. And we somehow between us, we were like, what if we beg Anne to teach us something? Because she's just our favorite teacher. And maybe Anne had mentioned this, but Anne was basically like, if you find 6 other people to do this with you, I will teach you a how to audition workshop on Saturday. And we were like, yes. So we run around, we get our 6 chosen ones. And I think I had always thought to uphold the integrity of improv. When I went out there in the audition, I had to go in blank and magic had to occur. And that was always, because I was like, this is improv, you know, and I'm not going to be one of those hacks that like, you know, they're like, what's a suggestion? And they're like, cup of coffee. And the improviser walks out there and they're like, hey there, Doug. Blah, blah. And you're like, oh, they wrote that before the audition. Nightmare. But I never realized there was even like education around auditions. And Anne taught us that workshop on how to audition well, which was just not about preparing. It was like about being prepared to go in there and make magic versus not preparing at all before you go into your audition. And the day after I took whatever moment I took that workshop, the next audition, I got a cruise ship and my Second City life began. And we got on house co's and we both got hired. And like, all we needed was this one workshop, which I think goes to say like arts educators, like we just needed 3 hours with Anne. And thankfully she gave them to us.
Well, no, because also this was just me sharing information that people try to keep quiet and keep magic. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, you know, I get to own this thing and I'm not going to tell you because then I've got this secret thing. And so much of it was just saying, no, you guys have it all. If I give you the secrets, then you will be good.
Yes. Yeah, that is what it felt like. And some of this stuff was really small, you guys. So just like, if anyone listening, you're like, yeah, duh. I'm telling you, it wasn't a duh. Because one of the smallest things was like the very first thing they would do in those auditions is like maybe 13 of you would line up, 10 of you, I can't remember. You know, you would all line up.
Yeah, like 12.
And they would just say, go down the line, tell us your name and like one fun fact about yourself, right? I just needed Anne to say, hey, when that happens, stand out and be funny. Because I was sharing an interesting fact about myself. You know what I mean? I was like, here's the assignment. Say my name, say something interesting, then the audition starts. And she's like, actually, it already started. And you should really wow them in that moment. And wowing them also does not mean having a janky line in your back pocket, but like reading the room in the moment. What did the person before you say? If the person before you said, I have a cat and his name is blah, blah, blah. If you were also going to share your cat story, like don't. And I think I just needed that like little bit of light on each of those moments in the audition process in order to go in and actually do it well. Because I was there to tell you that I grew up in 6 states in the Southwest. You know what I mean? Like, who cares?
Again, it's also demystifying it.
Yeah.
And just sort of saying, hey, think about, be someone I want to hire, be someone you want to work with.
Yeah. Yeah. Versus like, I think you go in being like, be the funniest.
Yes.
Be the best. Those are good goals that actually would work, except it's easier to think through who would I want to work with than it is to think through in this 20 minutes with this group of people, how will I be the funniest? Because again, sometimes, she would teach us other things too, where she'd be like, okay, so here's one of the things that happens. Am I giving away all your secrets, Anne?
No. See, this is what I'm saying. It can be free.
Yeah, where she'd be like, hey, so in that sort of initial they're kind of diagnosing you as you go down the line, you say yourself in your fun facts. They're kind of going like, uh-oh, this person seems a little off kilter, or like this person's like, they had 10 caffeines before coming in. And that's how they're going to figure out who they're going to pair together in scenes well to improvise with a stranger. And just kind of like learning how that structure worked. And then also like, if you seem like someone really capable, they might pair you with the least capable looking person. And the goal in that improv scene is no longer to be like, show off all my talent. It's to make that person look really good, to show off a different talent, which is I can work with anyone, versus the talent you think in an audition, which is be the funniest and be the best. I don't know if any of this is making sense, but I'm obviously excited about it now, and I'll never do that audition again. And I'm like, oh my God, it was such good tips.
But you go into meetings all the time, right?
Yeah. Which is a whole other skill set. Could have used a workshop on it. My God. Generals in Hollywood, it took so long to like get the Anne workshop on them to realize what they actually are.
Thinking through, what do those people want?
Yeah.
What do they need? I can be somebody you want to work with.
Yeah.
And this may be cheesy, but all of it for me is about all you can do is be the best version of yourself. That's the only thing you can ever do, regardless of whether it's to make the funny or to get the job or to, I'm deep in, my child is a senior in high school. So if it's to, try to get into the college you want to get into, whatever it is, the only thing you can do is be the best version of yourself. When we get into disciplinary conversations, we forget that, right? And we're like, oh no, it's about being the funniest because this is about making funny. But it's actually about what kind of funny can you make? Either that's the kind of funny that's appealing in that context, or it isn't. But if you don't show what the funny is that you can make, nobody has any access to that, right? You just seem like that off-kilter human with 18 cats, and nobody wants that.
TLC does, but yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Fair. That's fair, right. But that's a different kind of show.
But that you can take care of yourself, too. You can go into an audition or a meeting, and you can take care of yourself by thinking about why you should be there and what the best version of you is that's going to fit into that thing.
Yeah.
Everything that we've heard on this podcast goes to the essential notion of Erica's book, that arts education is not just for the artist. Or to broaden that even more, we're all artists in some way, and go be an artist scientist, go be an artist doctor, go be an artist accountant. So much of what you're saying, I want to credit Gary Shandling with this one, just because I usually want to credit Gary Shandling with everything. I think it might have been him who said it. It was like, when you start up as a comedian, as a comic, certainly on stage, there's the impetus to put on a lot of stuff. You've got your bits, you've got your stuff. And it's actually the lifetime work of getting rid of everything. True for acting, true for writing.
Yes.
That, of course, there's technique. And of course, there is, well, here's what you do here, and here is story structure. And what I do, it's a lot of story structure. And we talk about all these things. It's very helpful to be able to hold on to something, to say that this is an art form with, for lack of a better word, rules. But you got to have those. But then what we want to do is just rip you apart to find out what's inside, because we all have so many walls up. And all the arts educators who we've talked to say the same thing. It's all about you, whether it's we've talked to people who teach singing to non-singers, right? It's like, let's have you come out here and sing to us, because I got to get to who you are as a human. Pottery, same thing. Writers, actors, right? Everything. And it's great to hear it here too, for comedians, that I'm trying to get into you. And wouldn't that be a great bit of arts education for everyone.
Yeah. I think it's Dolly Parton who said, find out who you are and do it on purpose, which I love. And I think what I would love to bold and underline is like, it is so hard to find out who you are because kind of like earlier, that thing Anne said, like, I would have always, if you would have been like, do you know who you are? Every day I would have been like, yeah, and I would have been like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. You never realize that you don't until the day you actually do. And you're like, wow, I was so wrong for so long. I do think arts education is like, how do you teach yourself who you are? It should be the easiest thing in the world. And I have found it's been the hardest to, like you said, take off all the layers and like, be like, oh, it's this.
Well, but it also means, and one of the things that arts education does for you is that it's practice. This goes back to the audition workshop. I didn't just tell you the things.
That's right.
I made you get up and do them. And I actually had you watch each other and respond to what you saw.
And what you would hire. Wow, that was great.
Yes, right. I was like, who would you hire out of this?
Yeah.
It's really easy, particularly in our current age where we're all online and we all, we take in a lot of things. There's a tendency to sort of think, oh, well, I'll just take in more stuff and that will tell me the thing. But what arts education does is it allows you to practice being yourself in a way that we don't do in any other situation.
That's such a good point. Sorry, that was great. Yeah. To practice being yourself, which is also why people who need therapy and don't go to therapy love the arts.
Because they get to do those things.
That's also helpful practice. Absolutely.
And it's also about, and this is something that Alec and I have talked about a lot, about in schooling, we get so few opportunities, let's say, to practice with consequences, because everything that you do is either, oh, it's formative and nobody cares, or it's a summative exam or paper or whatever, and you either do a good job or you don't.
Yeah.
And so this like reclaiming failure, practice and failure as a part of the learning process feels to me like something that everybody that designs for learning could figure out how to incorporate.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like what you're saying, like no matter what your job is, finding out who you are is like, how could that not be helpful?
Right. Right.
Well, and that's the essence of improvisation, which is that when you're improvising, even if you're putting on a character, you're always doing what you would do. Improvisation is one of the amazing things that allows you to behave as you in a given circumstance and practice doing that kind of thing over and over again.
So I want to close us out by hearing from both of you about the thing you're working on right now. So Chelsea, I would love for you to spend a little time kind of talking about your book and talking about your process. And then maybe, Anne, we can hear a little about your next book too, as like the thing that you both are doing to share your work with the world now.
I have to say, it is so, what does it feel like? It feels like when you and your best friend get married at the same time, and like me and my comedy mentor have books at the same time. You know what I mean?
Dueling
like,
launch events coming 2024.
No, the great thing with books is they'll be like, please get together, please. Yeah, so writing the book came from two places. One, I have always loved celebrity memoirs. I joke that that's what happens when your nearest bookstore growing up is a Walmart. But it's a real joke where it's like, those were the books on the shelf at the store. Yeah. But what they really were for me, because women's memoirs just get so much more vulnerable than male memoirs, both because we commodify it from women for many reasons. But basically, I would love these books because they had the job I wanted. And then they would tell me how they got there. But they would also talk about like eating disorders and like relationships and like all this stuff that like there wasn't a lot of popular, funny art about, but they would be like in these books. And I was like, oh my God, I loved these books. And I always wanted to write one of my own. And I just assumed that would obviously never happen. I dreamt a dream of being a TV writer, but I was like, you'll never write a memoir. And then I have a podcast where we discuss female celebrity memoirs. And on that podcast, I began sharing my own story in the episodes. And lo and behold, I sold a memoir. And so people ask me what the genre is. And I sincerely mean it when I say it's a comedy gal memoir. To say that like, it's one of those books where it's like, it is a memoir, but also like, I'm still a little too young to truly have that. So it's like stories from my life. Ideally, they're funny. Some of them also are very sad. And It's the book that every time I open a memoir, all the things I am just craving for from a book, I try to put in this one. So every time as a kid to an adult, when I opened up a memoir and I was like, I just need something so badly, I tried to write that. So that's what mine is. It's coming out in June from HarperCollins. And it's such a long process because I think I sold it in like 2021 or something. And it's fully written now. And now is the little train starts moving to like go print it.
That's the weird thing about writing a book is that you write it and you do all the stuff. And then there's a really long, weird period of time where nothing happens.
Yeah, like right now we're like going over covers and copy editor notes and all that stuff. And you want to talk about your book?
Yes, please.
Is it also in June? What day? What is it wearing?
No, it's not in June, my friend. It is a trade publication, but it's being published by a university press.
So Anne is actually printing the copies herself, which is how that works.
All her comedy study students are in there just
at an academic press.
Yes. Actually, Northwestern University Press has been really lovely and has been a huge support both in my previous book too. So they've been great. But it's called Funnier, A Theory of Comedy with Practical Applications.
It's so funny because the title is it's the best title ever for a book, Funnier. And then the tagline is like, oh shit.
Yes. And I'm trying, of course, because I am an academic, but I'm also a person who actually trains real comedians. I am balancing both things.
That's the secret of academic titles. Wacky thing, description of what the thing is really about.
I know. It both describes this comedy theory I have that when we're creating comedy, we are using recognition and pain and distance. And that both when we create it and also when we revise it, we're asking ourselves, is it got enough bite to it? Oh no, maybe I need to exaggerate something. Maybe I need to have something be deeper or darker. Vice versa. Maybe I need to make it more recognizable. People don't understand what's happening. Maybe I need to make it safer. A lot of it just depends. And that we're doing that not just in a joke, but in a character, in a story, so that all those elements are sort of coming together when you're creating comedy. And then really practically, because that's what I do, I train baby comedians. So here's all these ideas. And then how do you use this to write a joke? How do you use this to create a sketch? How do you use this to create something physical? And then how do you rewrite all those things? Because that's so much of what I do as a director. And in comedy direction, you're really working more as like a head writer, right? You're sort of you're like, okay, this is really funny. How do we make it work? So it's also about how you put all those things together in a way that, again, makes it funnier.
I'm looking forward to the class or lecture tour of the twin flames of these two books.
Yes, please.
I feel that this is an excellent on-tour double act. I'm into it.
Chelsea would be funny, and I will talk about it.
I would love to go on the road with you, Anne, and I'll get up my boa and my tassels, and you'll explain.
And I'll say, here's why this is funny.
Maybe on a cruise ship.
No, we're never going on a cruise ship again. Ever.
Well, Anne and Chelsea, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your dedication and commitment to arts education. This is my small way of trying to talk to audiences who may not pick up and read a book on arts education, but who really want to hear from artists and their mentors as a way to continue to make the case for why arts education is the mechanism to transform our system of teaching and learning. So thank you for being a part of that conversation. I really am grateful.
Well, I couldn't believe in this more than I already do. So thank you so much for your work, and thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. It is one of the most important things that we can do right now for ourselves and our future.
Wow, Alec, that was such a delightful conversation. I really loved how clearly still involved in each other's lives these two women are, and how that came through both in the way they talked about their memories of one another. You know, sometimes we have these conversations and these are people that haven't spoken in many years. And so it takes a minute, or the memories aren't quite as fresh. But with Chelsea and Anne, you can really tell these are two people who have influenced one another in the ways they think about what makes for good comedy and how you use comedy to make people's lives better. I have to tell you, since we are recording this after the interview, I did watch Chelsea's short film Basic, which is hilarious and, as promised, 3 minutes long. And what I love about that, among other things, is that it's basically joke length. In the way that Chelsea is a teller of jokes, you see that come through in the making of a film that is essentially the scope of a joke. So everyone, go watch Basic after you listen to Chelsea and Anne wax philosophical about how to make great comedy.
Well, let me ask you a basic question here.
Good.
Erica, let me ask you this. What are the names of the short films that you have never made?
Littlest Jew, Biggest World.
1.
The Cat Lady That Wasn't.
2.
Accidental Adventures with Pilates.
3 things?
Yeah, that's it. This is improv. I'm going for it.
All right.
That's what came to my mind. That's what I'm sticking with. And Alec, I have a question for you. What are 3 ways that our listeners can get involved with our show?
This one's going to be half improv too, because I don't have the answer in front of me, but I'm fairly certain they can check out our website, which is probably artseducatorspodcast.com. And on there, is that right? Is that
correct?
Okay, so please, yes, go ahead. Say it.
1.
Thank you. The second thing they can do is email us if they have thoughts, recipes, anything they want to send our way. And the email address is coming to my mind as I'm saying it to you. It's probably contact@artseducatorspodcast.com. I feel good about that.
That is correct. 2.
And the third great way, hey, check us out on Instagram. You're looking at me like that's not the third. Tonight might be 4 things, but the third way is I really want them to go to the Instagram. They're going to find us at Arts Educators. No. At Arts. No. Tell me, what's the third one?
The third one is we are really trying to expand the listenership of this podcast to let everybody know how great we are. Mm-hmm. And we know you love us. So if you like us and you rate us and you comment on our feed, either in Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, we would surely be grateful for that because it helps other folks know about our show.
3 things. By the way, I'm sitting here downloading Instagram to my iPad so I could look up our Instagram. What is it?
It's at Arts Ed Podcast is our Instagram handle.
There is no chance it's at Arts Ed Podcast. That is incorrect.
I'm almost positive.
It isn't. This is live. We're keeping this. Someone look it up somewhere.
Nobody wants to listen to this.
This is good stuff. I'm sure the music is playing us out right now. Who could do it?
Oh, it's Arts Educators Podcast.
Thank you very much.
Instagram at Arts Educators Podcast.
3.5 things.
This is the COVID haze of Alec and Erica record a podcast. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you next time. Onward together.
Arts Educators Save the World is hosted by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and produced and co-hosted by me, Alec Lev. Our executive producer is Doug Matica, and our audio producer is Justin Asher. We are also executive produced by the fantastic group at Story Pirate Studios, Lee Overtree, Benjamin Salka, and Amy Fiore. Original music is by Dan Lipton, and our artwork is by Lyra Evans. Check out our website, designed by Cole Locasio, at www.artseducatorspodcast.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Arts Educators. Yes, somehow that wasn't taken yet. And on Instagram at Arts Educators Podcast. Write to us with your questions and comments at contact@artseducatorspodcast.com. And wherever you're listening, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps the show. We are proud to be sponsored in part by the Wallace Foundation, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and the Gibb Faculty Fellowship. Arts Educators Save the World was created by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and Alec Lev.